We arrived on this planet with more confidence than caution, which in hindsight may have been our first mistake. The Council deemed this mission so trivial that they assigned it to me, their most decorated analyst, as though to remind me that excellence sometimes earns the dullest assignments. My record speaks for itself. 6 Kriv mercenaries captured while blindfolded, the Karthak swamp species classified in 3 days, the Zor campaign concluded without a casualty. And now here I was, dispatched to a damp green world populated by primitive bipeds who survive mostly by accident, as far as I can tell. Humans are astonishing in their mediocrity. Their culture is a patchwork of contradictions. They venerate celebrities who cannot sing. They consume foods that slowly poison them, and they distract themselves with glowing screens broadcasting strangers eating insects in competitions they call reality television. Even their nutrition is laughable. They place frozen cylinders into small humming boxes they name microwaves, and with a tone resembling a victory trumpet, the boxes deliver steaming burritos that resemble neither proper sustenance nor weaponry, though I suspect they may serve as both. That they survive despite these habits is remarkable. That they thrive is inexplicable. We located our target deep in a jungle region, one of those sweltering stretches of Earth where the air itself feels hostile. The scanners identified a solitary human beside a riverbank. He appeared to be in his 3rd decade of life, lean, upright, wearing cloth patterned with irregular patches of green and brown. Humans call this camouflage, believing it renders them invisible, though I assure you it does not. Their animals see through it, and so do we. This man had built a small fire, its smoke curling lazily into the canopy. He was heating a metal container of food, pausing occasionally to glance at the trees. My junior officer speculated he was a naturalist or perhaps some recreational camper. I disagreed. His movements were too efficient, his gaze too steady. But efficiency does not equal threat, and he was only one human. The paralysis beam descended with flawless accuracy. His body froze mid-motion, spoon raised halfway to his mouth. His eyes widened slightly, though there was no time for alarm to take root. In an instant, he was ours, silent, immobile, helpless. My subordinates approached with more caution than necessary, lifting him as though fragile. I reminded them he was no more dangerous than an unplugged toaster. They laughed, though the sound rang hollow, forced by discipline. Aboard the vessel, we placed him in the containment chamber. The walls curved seamless and sterile, built to hold creatures with strength far beyond human capacity. He lay on the platform, limbs secured, chest rising with shallow breaths. His face was plain, symmetrical, forgettable. Scans confirmed his physiology fell well within species averages. Muscle tone slightly above baseline, scarring across several regions. Nothing extraordinary. I dictated my notes briskly. Specimen exhibits standard mammalian characteristics. Likely ordinary labor or soldier type. No unique traits observed. And yet, despite the evidence, I lingered on his expression. The paralysis field should have relaxed every muscle, locking his body into stillness. But I saw a subtle motion at the edges of his lips. At first I thought it was spasm, a meaningless twitch, but it persisted, curving faintly upward. A smile, not broad or foolish, but quiet, deliberate. My assistants noticed too. One whispered that perhaps he was conscious. I silenced the speculation immediately. Residual nerve activity, I declared. Nothing more. They obeyed, but their eyes betrayed uncertainty. I leaned closer to the glass, studying him. His eyelids had not closed entirely. A sliver of iris reflected the chamber's light, suggesting awareness. He was not afraid, not even confused. He looked amused. The thought was absurd, and I dismissed it at once. Humans do not smile in the face of abduction. They panic, cry, soil themselves. We have cataloged such responses many times. Still, unease crept beneath my armor of superiority. To smother it, I reminded myself of human absurdities. These are the creatures who idolize a mythical figure named Florida Man, a supposed aberration who commits acts of reckless idiocy. These are the creatures who plaster their communications with yellow faces called emojis instead of coherent language. These are the creatures who fight wars over resources they waste in entertainment. To take them seriously would be to dishonor the council. I ordered the neural scanners prepared. Metallic arms descended over the human skull, humming softly as they aligned. My assistant asked if we should increase the stasis field, but I dismissed the suggestion. He is already neutralized, I said. He cannot act. Confidence laced every word. It was, after all, the truth as I understood it. The chamber filled with sterile light, beams beginning their sweep. His chest rose and fell in slow rhythm, as though he were meditating. His lips twitched again, just barely, but enough to ignite irritation in me. Perhaps he had some residual defiance, some unconscious rebellion. Whatever it was, it would not matter. Soon we would peel apart his thoughts, categorize his instincts, and add his data to the archives. Still, before I turned away, I dictated one final note for the record. It was perfunctory, almost careless, meant only to capture every observable detail. Subject demonstrates minor facial anomaly under paralysis, I said. Appears as faint curvature of lips. Possible meaningless spasm. Resembles the smile. And though I said it with disdain, I felt the first faint whisper of something I had never before experienced while observing a primitive species. Doubt. The containment chamber was silent, but for the measured hum of our instruments. I expected a routine commencement of neural survey, the kind of work so mundane I might have conducted it in half-consciousness. Yet as the light pulsed across the human skull, his eyelids flicked open. Not the sluggish droop of sedation wearing thin, but a deliberate opening, pupils constricting against our artificial glare. He was awake, though he should not have been. My first thought was irritation, an inconvenient error in calibration. My second, quickly denied, was unease. He did not scream. Humans scream when startled. They scream when afraid or when their reality fractures. Instead, his mouth curled again in that deliberate way. A smile, clearer now, purposeful. He surveyed the chamber with calm attention, his gaze taking in the curved walls, the suspended machinery, the transparent screen behind which we observed. Then, to my dismay, his eyes found mine. For a heartbeat too long, he studied me, and the smile deepened. I activated the translator field, expecting frantic questions or threats. Instead, the first words he spoke were, "So which one of you is in charge?" His tone was calm, conversational, as though we were colleagues in a meeting rather than captor and captive. My assistance shifted uncomfortably. I straightened, ensuring my posture conveyed superiority. "I am the overseer. You will remain still for examination." He ignored the command entirely. His gaze shifted across the observation panel, and with unnerving precision, he gestured with his chin toward each of us. "You're the pilot," he said, eyes on my subordinate at navigation. "You're the systems engineer," he added, nodding toward the technician. Then his eyes returned to me. "And you're the one writing the report. Analyst. Scientist. Probably the one who talks too much." My jaw stiffened. Pure coincidence, I assured myself. Statistical probability, nothing more. Still, my subordinates glanced at me in discomfort, as though the human's casual deductions had exposed some hidden truth. I attempted laughter, measured, dismissive. "You guess at roles the way your species guesses at weather. Accuracy is irrelevant." He tilted his head, unperturbed. "Maybe, but you'd be surprised what people give away by posture and silence." Then, as if the situation were a social gathering, he added, "Name's Callum, by the way. Since you already know mine, I figure introductions are fair." Introductions? Captives do not initiate etiquette. Yet there he was, relaxed in his restraints, speaking with a civility that mocked our authority. My assistant hissed a reminder. He should not have been awake. The paralysis field remained active, yet he flexed his fingers as though testing them, slow, deliberate movements that should have been impossible. "You have no comprehension of where you are," I said coldly. "Your nervous system is immobilized by technology your species could not imagine." He chuckled softly, a chuckle, as if amused. "I was awake the whole trip up," he said. Nice view through the hull seams. You really should check your shielding. Leaks starlight like a sieve. I felt my throat tighten, though I spoke with practiced disdain. Fabrications. No human could perceive transit at that velocity. His eyes narrowed, that smile returning. Sure, let's call it that. The others shifted uneasily. I sensed their doubt, but pressed forward with procedure. We initiated the primary diagnostic pulse, beam stroking across his cerebral structure. He winced slightly, then spoke again. IKEA instructions are clearer than this setup. At least those come with a cartoon man telling you which end of the wrench is up. I paused. IKEA. I repeated, the word foreign, ridiculous. He smirked. Exactly. Confusion rippled through my team. Sarcasm, an element of human communication we had studied, but never confronted directly, danced through every syllable. I had read about it. Their tendency to say the opposite of meaning, to cloak hostility in humor. Primitive, yes, but destabilizing when applied with precision. I attempted to maintain control. You will answer our questions directly. Humor will not avail you. Yet even as I spoke, I realized I was no longer dictating the pace. He was calm, deliberate, each remark laced with something I could not quantify. My instruments registered abnormal neural spikes, patterns exceeding expected human parameters. At first I dismissed it as equipment malfunction, but then he tilted his head again, eyes flicking to the cameras embedded discreetly in the chamber corners. You've got blind spots, he observed. 2 in the ceiling, 1 behind me. Funny design choice. You'd think with all this tech you'd want full coverage. My hand froze above the console. He should not have known the locations. He should not have even suspected there were blind spots. The chamber was seamless, engineered to perfection, and yet he had looked directly at them, unblinking. You presume much, I said, though my voice betrayed the first trace of strain. He leaned back, or rather, the illusion of leaning back, for his restraint still held him, and whispered with infuriating composure, I've been analyzing since I woke up. The words lingered in the chamber like a toxin. My assistants exchanged nervous glances again, waiting for me to dismiss the statement as nonsense. I opened my mouth, prepared to restore confidence. But then he added, almost casually, by the way, the alloy in your floor plating isn't magnetic, right? Otherwise this trick would be messier. What trick? My technician blurted before I silenced him with a glare. Callum smiled wider, that unnerving calm, unwavering. Oh, nothing. Just keeping track. I should have reprimanded myself for the chill that ran down my spine. It was absurd. He was a human, restrained, surrounded by technology his species could not comprehend. And yet, as he sat there with the calm of a man at a cafe table, I felt something unsteady forming at the edges of my certainty. He tilted his head once more, as if listening to something only he could hear. Then, with the same maddening composure, he said, You think I don't know what you're doing, but I've already mapped half the ship in my head, and I think I know how to use it. For a moment, silence consumed us all. Even the hum of machinery seemed to recede. I straightened, forcing authority into my tone. Impossible. He met my gaze with steady eyes. Sure, let's call it that too. The section ended there, not with chaos, not with alarms, but with something far worse. A smile. A man in restraints smiling, as though the roles of hunter and prey were quietly shifting. The scans began with the sterile efficiency of routine procedure. Our instruments glowed in measured pulses, beams rippling across the human's cortex, recording synaptic currents and mapping neural structure. I had anticipated what every text predicted. Limited electrical activity, bursts of primitive emotional responses, nothing beyond the crude survival algorithms one expects from a species that struggles with its own electricity bills. Yet the readings that materialized were grotesquely abnormal. Spikes shot across the graphs, dense clusters of activity outpacing our calibration. My assistant muttered something about the machinery misfiring, and I was almost relieved to believe it, until the human opened one eye wider and whispered, "Tickles." That single word bent the atmosphere of the chamber. He was not disoriented, not overwhelmed, not confused. He was amused. The data confirmed the impossible. His neural complexity exceeded projected capacity. His mind should have fractured under the pressure of our survey. Instead, it flexed and stabilized, as though accustomed to intrusion. I tried to preserve authority with my voice. The readings are corrupted. He cannot maintain this activity. But the readings were not corrupted. They searched. He tilted his head toward the observation glass and asked, "How many terabytes does that thing store before it overheats?" My crew stiffened. His question demonstrated not only awareness of our apparatus, but also the vocabulary to frame it. His smile spread slowly, the curve both infuriating and chilling. I demanded answers, but he supplied them first. "You got an input relay problem on your starboard conduit. Your power flow isn't balanced, so when the system spikes, it'll trip your stabilizers. You should fix that." My pilot blanched. He had not spoken of that minor imbalance even to me. The human should have had no way of knowing. "You are speculating," I insisted, though my voice wavered. "Am I?" he asked lightly. Then, with that same irritating calm, he added, "You've got 3 cameras in here. One's already overheating. I can hear the fan." My assistants whispered to each other, voices trembling. I silenced them with a glare, though my own composure frayed. His awareness was not speculative. He was cataloging, analyzing, exploiting. We pressed on, though my certainty crumbled with each passing moment. When we requested identification, he gave it freely. "Callum, former SAS sniper. Now I test security systems. Companies pay me to break into their facilities and show them how vulnerable they are." I recorded the statement, trying to twist it into insignificance. A mercenary, a soldier of limited scope. Yet my chest tightened at the implications. If his profession was the discovery of weaknesses, then this, our vessel, our technology, our procedures, was his newest assignment. He leaned back within his restraints and smirked. "You should know, I've already sent a message." The words detonated inside the chamber. My technician scrambled to check transmissions, but logs revealed nothing. My pilot insisted our encryption was intact. I declared it a bluff, a feeble attempt to unsettle us. Yet Callum's smile never faltered. "You think I'm joking," he said. "But you've had me under for, 6 hours? That's plenty of time." I tried to laugh. It emerged brittle. Humans possess no capacity for interstellar communication. He arched an eyebrow. "You'd be amazed what we hide. Ever wonder why all those rocket launches get called weather satellites? You really think we're that sentimental about clouds?" His words burrowed into me. I searched for rebuttals, but found none. He spoke as though reciting facts, not bluffs. My subordinates whispered in rising panic. I snapped at them to maintain discipline, but even as I barked, I felt the edges of my own certainty corroding. The scans intensified. The data, once expected to prove his inferiority, now revealed dense cross patterns of neural fire, layers of calculation stacked upon instinct. He was not reacting as prey. He was anticipating as predator. I tried to salvage authority. "You exaggerate. Your species cannot conceal such capabilities." He gave a slow shrug, impossibly casual given his restraints. "We thought you'd never check. You assumed we were idiots. Worked out better than we hoped." My instruments flickered then, screens distorting with static. The ship's AI issued a warning tone. I barked commands, certain this was coincidence. Yet Callum smiled as though he had expected it. "Right on time," he murmured. The AI stuttered, not malfunctioning, but repeating. It replayed fragments of his earlier words. "Tickles already sent a message, right on time." Each phrase echoed in synthetic cadence, cycling without command. My crew froze in disbelief. Our systems never repeated unlogged speech. This was intrusion, not error. I slammed the console. "What have you done?" His eyes met mine through the glass, cold and deliberate. "Just listening. Your scanner isn't one way. It's like a mirror. If you shine a light, sometimes it bounces back." The analogy was infuriatingly simple. Our technology could not be subverted by analogy. And yet the AI continued to stammer his words, replaying them with eerie rhythm. I attempted to sound confident, though my voice cracked. You cannot comprehend our systems. Maybe not in full, he admitted calmly. But I don't need to. I just need to understand enough. The chamber chilled despite stable temperature. My subordinates shrank from their consoles, whispering fear. I realized the dynamic had inverted. We were no longer interrogators. We were participants in his test. Desperation drove me to question him further. Why are you not afraid? We control you utterly. He leaned forward, restraints creaking slightly under his weight. Control? You keep saying that. But I've worked in places where people thought they had control. Every single time, I show them otherwise. He paused, voice lowering. You're not the first. The implication thudded into me. Not the first. Others? Had our empire's arrogance already been tested elsewhere? My thoughts scattered. The chamber felt smaller, airtighter. My final attempt at dominance was feeble. You overestimate your importance. You are one human among billions. Replaceable. Forgettable. His smirk faltered for the first time, replaced by a look far more unsettling. Pity. That's what you don't get. We've always been underestimated. That's how we like it. The lights flickered. Consoles blinked. My technician cried out as the AI logged unauthorized access from within our own survey chamber. Impossible. He was restrained. He was helpless. And yet the evidence glowed across every screen. He whispered one last phrase as alarms began their low wail. Consider this my assessment report. And with that, the section ended. Not with weapons drawn, not with violence, but with knowledge. Knowledge that the human was not prey, not subject, but examiner. We, not he, were the experiment. The alarms began as a low vibration through the deck plating, more sensation than sound, like a throat clearing before an argument. Then they rose, shrill and insistent, red strobes cutting across the chamber. My subordinates scattered to their consoles, hands trembling over controls that refused to obey. I barked commands with as much authority as I could still muster, but every panel responded sluggishly or not at all. The human sat in his restraints, utterly calm, watching the chaos unfold with that same infuriating curve of his lips. Minor malfunction, I declared, though my voice cracked. Systems will stabilize. They won't, Callum said, softly enough that the words slid beneath the alarms and still reached me. You've already lost primary command. I tried to laugh, but the sound emerged brittle. Our systems are fail-safe. No human. He interrupted with cruel precision. Fail-safe just means you haven't seen the right failure yet. My engineer shouted that the ship's AI had locked out half the command codes. The pilot screamed back that stabilizers were offline. Screens flickered, lines of alien script overwritten with fragmented phrases in the human's tongue. Already sent a message. Right on time. Tickles. The repetition chilled me. Our sentinel intelligence, the pride of our empire, was parroting the words of a primitive. Ow! I demanded. You are restrained. You have nothing. Callum tilted his head, as if studying a puzzle piece he had already solved. You gave me everything. The scan beam. It wasn't just probing, it was transmitting. I mapped your systems off the reflections. Then I asked your AI a few questions. Turns out, it listens better than you do. The chamber rocked as gravity faltered. My assistant slammed into a wall, shrieking. I gripped the console, forcing calm into my voice. This is sabotage. You will be punished severely for. Punished? He gave a faint chuckle. You still think you're holding the leash. The lights dimmed, then surged again, but unevenly, shadows carving across the walls. For the first time, I understood that the fear I had attributed to my underlings had taken root in me. I felt it coil tight in my chest. What is your purpose? I demanded. Why undermine us? He met my eyes through the glass. Purpose? Survival. You thought Earth was blind, stumbling in the dark. But we've been watching. We've been preparing. You came here thinking we were prey. That's the trick. We wanted you to think that. His words rang with a conviction that made mockery of my denials. Images flooded my memory. The scars across his body, the calm in his voice, the precision with which he noted every flaw in our ship. He was not improvising. He was executing a plan he had considered long before we touched down. You are one man, I said desperately. You cannot represent an entire world. He leaned forward, restraints creaking, shadows slicing across his face. Maybe not, but I'm enough to show you what happens when you underestimate us. And I'm not the only one. The AI spoke again, voice fractured but clear. Earth is closed for business. The phrase repeated, echoing in tones half synthetic, half human. My subordinates stared in horror. I cannot bring myself to look away from the man who had placed those words inside our machine. My technician screamed that the blast doors had sealed, locking us out of navigation. My pilot confirmed propulsion was frozen. The human had reversed our own security grid against us, isolating each compartment, cutting us into pieces of ship that no longer belonged to us. You see, Callum said, his tone maddeningly calm. This isn't a fight. It's a lesson. I gritted my teeth. A lesson in what? He smiled, faint and unshakable. That arrogance blinds more effectively than any weapon. The ship groaned as pressure systems recalibrated under his manipulation. My subordinates begged me for orders, but I had none to give. I realized in that moment of humiliating clarity that the control I had flaunted was illusion. The jungle we thought we had invaded had quietly swallowed us whole, and the human we had mocked was not our subject, but our judge. And then, as if to salt the wound, he produced the strangest object. I had not noticed it before, perhaps smuggled on his person, perhaps conjured from the chaos itself. A roll of gray adhesive strip. He tore a piece with his teeth and smoothed it across a sparking panel at his side. The console flickered, stabilized, obeyed. This one used duct tape? I whispered, horrified. We still don't understand duct tape. Callum smiled at my despair. Doesn't matter if you understand it. Only matters that it works. My crew collapsed into silence, the alarms now background noise against the enormity of what had occurred. We had been outmaneuvered not by superior firepower or advanced species, but by a human who understood the power of perception, improvisation, and calm. He leaned back, expression unreadable now, the smirk fading into something colder. Tell your empire, he said, voice low but steady. Earth is off limits. Whatever you planned, stop. We won't tolerate visitors who come here thinking it's a hunting ground. My throat closed around unspoken retorts. There was nothing left to say. His restraint field, once a symbol of his helplessness, now looked like a precaution for our safety, not his. The ship shuddered again, and then, with finality, systems shut down into silence. Darkness wrapped around us, broken only by the faint glow of his eyes through the glass. My arrogance, my certainty, my practiced disdain, all dissolved in that quiet. I had begun this mission convinced of human weakness, cataloging their absurdities with smug detachment. Reality television, microwave burritos, their bizarre worship of figures like Florida Man. I had considered them primitive jokes. Yet here, in the suffocating dark of our own ship, I understood the truth. We had mistaken camouflage for incompetence. Their absurdities were masks, distractions, noise. Beneath them lurked a species capable of patience, cunning, and terrifying unpredictability. They were not prey. They were predators wearing clownish paint. I forced myself to dictate the last entry into my recorder, though my hand shook. We looked into the jungle and saw simple creatures. Instead, the jungle looked back, and it smiled. The words hung in the silence, both confession and epitaph.